The blood-red sun dipped below the horizon as Marigold Davenport clutched her infant daughter tighter against her chest, desperate to muffle the baby's cries as she crouched behind the abandoned stagecoach station. 6 months ago, she had been the respectable daughter of a Boston merchant. Now she was a fugitive in the harsh New Mexico territory of 1875, with nothing but the clothes on her back and her precious 3-month-old baby, Lily. The distant howl of coyotes sent shivers down Marigold's spine. Night was falling fast, and she had nowhere to go. The dilapidated station offered little protection from the elements, its roof half-collapsed and windows long since shattered. But it was all she had after fleeing the small mining town 20 miles back, where whispers about her, an unmarried woman with a child, had turned into open hostility. "Hush now, my sweet girl," Marigold whispered, her voice hoarse from thirst. She hadn't had a proper drink since morning, saving the last of her water for mixing with the dwindling supply of powdered milk for Lily. "We'll find somewhere safe soon." Marigold leaned back against the weathered wood of the station wall, closing her eyes for just a moment. Her golden brown hair, once her pride and joy, hung in limp tangles around her face. The fine dress she'd worn when she left Boston had been replaced by a simple calico gown, now stained and torn from her journey west. The sound of approaching hoofbeats jolted her awake. Panic seized her chest as she scrambled deeper into the shadows, one hand instinctively covering Lily's mouth to quiet her. The last thing she needed was for some drunken cowhand or, worse, a bandit to discover them. The rider slowed his horse to a walk, the animal's shoes crunching on the gravelly soil. Through a crack in the wall, Marigold could make out the silhouette of a tall man on a magnificent chestnut stallion. He wore a wide-brimmed hat pulled low, and even in the dim light she could see the dust coating his denim pants and leather vest. "Hello," the man called out, his voice deep but unexpectedly gentle. "I know someone's in there. I can hear the baby." Marigold's heart hammered against her ribs. She hadn't realized Lily's whimpers were audible from outside. "I mean you no harm, madam," the stranger continued, dismounting with a fluid grace that spoke of years in the saddle. "Name's August Rawlins. I'm the foreman at the Diamond R Ranch about 5 miles east of here." He took a step toward the station, and Marigold instinctively pressed herself further into the corner, Lily clutched protectively to her breast. "Please," she called out, her voice trembling, "just ride on. We want no trouble." August paused, then slowly removed his hat, revealing dark blonde hair and a face that, while weathered by sun and wind, couldn't have belonged to a man much older than 30. "No trouble offered, madam," he said, standing perfectly still. "But it'll be below freezing tonight, and this ain't no place for a woman and baby. My ranch isn't far, and we've got a spare room in the main house. You'd be welcome to it." Marigold hesitated. Every instinct told her to run. To hide trusting men had led to her current predicament. But Lily gave a pitiful cry, and the cold wind cut through her thin dress like a knife. "How do I know I can trust you?" she asked, edging slightly forward where he could see her. In the fading light, August's blue eyes widened slightly at her appearance. She knew she must look half wild, but his expression remained kind. "You don't," he admitted frankly. "But I give you my word as a gentleman that no harm will come to you or your child at my ranch. And if you're not comfortable by morning, I'll bring you to town myself." He reached into his saddlebag and pulled out a canteen, placing it on the ground before backing away several paces. "Water," he explained, "fresh from the spring this morning." Marigold's thirst overcame her caution. She darted forward, snatched the canteen, and retreated to check it before drinking deeply. The cool water was like heaven on her parched throat. "Thank you," she whispered. August nodded, keeping his distance. "Madam, I don't know your story, and it ain't my business unless you want to tell it. But nobody should be out here alone with a baby. There's wolves, cougars, and worse." As if on cue, a coyote howled much closer than before, and Marigold felt her resolve weaken. "One night," she said firmly. "Just until I figure out where to go." August's face relaxed into a small smile that transformed his features from merely handsome to something that made Marigold's breath catch unexpectedly. "That's fine by me," he said, then gestured to his horse. "Can you ride? Or would you prefer I lead while you sit?" "I can ride," Marigold replied with a touch of pride. If there was one thing her unconventional upbringing with her merchant father had given her, it was comfort on horseback. August helped her secure Lily in a makeshift sling across her chest, then gave her a leg up onto his stallion. He took the reins and began leading the horse eastward, walking steadily through the gathering darkness. "What's your name, madam?" he asked after they'd traveled in silence for several minutes. Marigold hesitated, then decided there was little point in lying. Marigold Davenport. "And this is Lily." August glanced back with that same small smile. Pretty names for pretty ladies. Despite herself, Marigold felt a flush warm her cheeks, and she was grateful for the darkness that hid it. As they crested a small rise, lights appeared in the distance, the warm, inviting glow of a ranch house. For the first time in months, Marigold felt a flicker of hope that perhaps she might find a safe harbor, even if just for one night. "Almost there," August said softly. "Diamond Artique's been my home for nearly 10 years now. Came west after the war with nothing but my horse and the clothes on my back. Owner took me in, taught me everything. When he passed 3 years ago, he left it to me." Marigold was surprised by this voluntary information, and even more surprised to find herself curious about this quiet, respectful cowboy. "You've done well for yourself," she observed, noting the size of the ranch as they drew closer. August shrugged. "I've been fortunate. And I try to pass that good fortune along when I can." As they approached the ranch house, a woman appeared on the porch, her gray hair pulled back in a severe bun. Her expression, however, was anything but severe as she caught sight of them. "August Rawlins. I was about to send Miguel out looking for you. Supper's been ready this past." She stopped abruptly, noticing Marigold and the baby. "Land's sakes, who do we have here, Mrs. Porter?" "This is Miss Davenport and her daughter Lily," August said, helping Marigold down from the horse. "They'll be staying the night. Can you ready the spare room?" The older woman's sharp eyes took in Marigold's bedraggled appearance and the small bundle against her chest. Instead of the judgment or suspicion Marigold had grown accustomed to, she saw only concern. "Of course." "Poor thing looks half-starved," Mrs. Porter said, bustling forward. "Come inside, dear. I've got stew on the stove and fresh bread just out of the oven." Before Marigold could protest, she found herself ushered into a warm, clean kitchen that smelled of beef, onions, and freshly baked bread. Her stomach growled loudly, reminding her that she'd had nothing but a stale biscuit since the previous day. "Sit, sit," Mrs. Porter insisted, already ladling stew into a bowl. "The baby needs tending too," Marigold nodded, suddenly overwhelmed by the kindness being shown to her. I have some milk powder, but it's nearly gone." "We've got fresh goat's milk," August said from the doorway where he'd been watching. "Mrs. Porter, could you water it down some for the little one?" The housekeeper nodded, already moving to a small pantry. "I don't know how to thank you," Marigold said, her voice catching. August removed his hat, hanging it on a peg by the door. In the warm light of the kitchen, she could see him clearly for the first time. His face was indeed weathered from years under the sun, with fine lines at the corners of his eyes that suggested he smiled more often than not. A small scar crossed his left eyebrow, and his strong jaw was covered with a neatly trimmed beard that was a shade darker than his hair. "No thanks needed," he said simply. Anyone would do the same. But Marigold knew that wasn't true. The world was not so kind to women in her position. While Mrs. Porter prepared a bottle for Lily, Marigold ate ravenously, the rich stew and fresh bread the most delicious meal she could remember. August sat across from her, drinking coffee and occasionally answering her questions about the ranch. 15,000 acres, he told her. Run about 2,000 head of cattle and keep a small remuda of horses I've taken to breeding quarter horses these past few years. All by yourself. Marigold asked. Surprised, August chuckled. No, madam. Got 6 cowboys who live in the bunkhouse, plus Miguel and his family in the small house near the corrals. He's my segundo, my right-hand man, and Mrs. Porter here keeps us all in line. The housekeeper harumphed at this as she handed Marigold the bottle for Lily. Someone has to make sure you boys don't live like savages. After the meal, Mrs. Porter showed Marigold to a small but comfortable bedroom off the main hallway. Bathroom's through there, she said, pointing to a door. We've got running water. August had it put in last year. Quite the modern convenience. Thank you, Marigold said, tears pricking her eyes at the simple luxury of a private room with a bed and running water. You've been so kind. Mrs. Porter patted her hand. Get some rest, dear. Whatever troubles you're running from, they can wait until morning. Left alone, Marigold bathed Lily in the small basin, then washed herself as best she could. There was a clean nightgown laid out on the bed, probably Mrs. Porter's, though it was a bit large on Marigold's thin frame. Lily fell asleep almost immediately, her tiny stomach full for the first time in days. Marigold laid her in the center of the bed, building a barrier of pillows around her, then curled up beside her daughter. Despite her exhaustion, sleep eluded her. The events of the day, the kindness of strangers, and the uncertainty of tomorrow swirled in her mind. What would happen when August learned of her shame? When he discovered why she was running, a soft knock at the door startled her from her thoughts. Miss Davenport, it's August. Just wanted to check if you have everything you need. Marigold pulled the quilt up to her chin before answering. Yes, thank you. We're quite comfortable. There was a pause. Good, that's good. I'll be up for a while yet if you need anything, just down the hall in the study. Mr. Rawlins, Marigold called before he could leave. Yes. Why are you helping us? You don't know me. I could be anyone. Another pause, longer this time. When I came west after the war, I was broken in more ways than one. Someone took a chance on me when I needed it most. I'm just passing along the favor. His voice softened. Get some sleep, Miss Davenport. You're safe here. His footsteps retreated down the hallway, and Marigold found herself staring at the closed door, wondering about the quiet cowboy and the pain she'd glimpsed behind his eyes when he mentioned the war. For the first time in months, Marigold felt the tight knot of fear in her chest begin to loosen. Just for tonight, she would allow herself to feel safe. Tomorrow would bring its own troubles, but for now she had a warm bed, a full stomach, and the knowledge that, at least for this moment, she and Lily were protected. Morning came with the crowing of a rooster and the soft golden light of dawn filtering through the curtains. For a disorienting moment, Marigold forgot where she was, reaching instinctively for Lily before her eyes even opened. The baby gurgled happily beside her, tiny fists waving in the air. Good morning, my sweet girl, Marigold whispered, lifting Lily to press a kiss to her forehead. The baby had slept through the night for the first time in weeks, her little body recognizing the safety and comfort that Marigold herself had felt. A soft knock at the door preceded Mrs. Porter's voice. Miss Davenport, I've brought some fresh clothes that might fit you better than that nightgown, and breakfast will be ready whenever you are. Marigold opened the door to find the housekeeper holding a stack of clothing. "These were my daughters," Mrs. Porter explained. "She's married and living in Denver now, but she left some things behind. You're about her size, I'd wager." "I couldn't possibly," Marigold began, but Mrs. Porter waved away her protest. "Nonsense. They're just gathering dust here. Besides, a young woman needs proper clothes, especially with a little one to tend to." Touched by the woman's kindness, Marigold accepted the bundle. "Thank you, truly." After washing and dressing in a simple but well-made blue calico dress that fit her far better than her old tattered one, Marigold plaited her hair and pinned it up as neatly as she could. With Lily fed and changed, she made her way to the kitchen, where the aroma of coffee, bacon, and biscuits made her stomach growl appreciatively. August was already seated at the table, reading what appeared to be a cattle journal. He looked up when she entered, and Marigold was startled by the warmth that spread through her at his smile. "Good morning," he said, rising to his feet. "You look rested." Marigold nodded, suddenly shy under his gaze. "Yes, thank you. It's amazing what a real bed can do." Mrs. Porter bustled over with a plate piled high with food. "Sit, sit. Growing a baby takes strength, and that means eating properly." Marigold blushed at the forthright comment, but took a seat across from August. "Mrs. Porter, might I ask, do you have something I could use as a cradle for Lily while I eat?" "Already thought of that," the housekeeper replied, bringing over a sturdy wooden box lined with soft blankets. "Used to keep my own babies in something similar when they were small." "You have children?" Marigold asked, carefully laying Lily in the makeshift cradle. "3. All grown now with families of their own." A shadow passed over the older woman's face. "Lost my husband 5 years back. Influenza. August was kind enough to keep me on." "Mrs. Porter is being modest," August interjected. "This ranch would fall apart without her. She's the one keeping me on, if we're being honest." The housekeeper chuckled, swatting him with a dishcloth. "Don't you go spreading such tales, August Rawlins." Their easy camaraderie made Marigold's heart ache with a strange mixture of longing and envy. It had been so long since she'd experienced such simple human warmth. "What are your plans, Miss Davenport?" August asked after they'd eaten in companionable silence for several minutes. "You mentioned needing to figure out where to go." Marigold set down her coffee cup, anxiety flooding back. In truth, she had no plan beyond keeping moving, staying ahead of the scandal and the man who had ruined her. "I thought perhaps to continue west," she said carefully. "California, maybe. I've heard there are opportunities there for someone like me." "Someone like you," August's brow furrowed. "A woman alone, with a child," Marigold clarified, not meeting his eyes. August was quiet for a moment. "The journey to California is hard, even for those traveling in groups with proper supplies. Alone with an infant." He trailed off, shaking his head. "I'm stronger than I look, Mr. Rawlins," Marigold said with a touch of defiance. "I don't doubt it," he replied seriously. "Anyone who's survived what you clearly have would have to be. But there's strength in knowing when to accept help, too." Before Marigold could respond, the back door swung open, and a man in his 40s with dark hair streaked with gray entered. His complexion was tanned and weathered, his clothes dusty from the trail. "Morning, boss," he said to August before noticing Marigold. "Madam," he added with a respectful nod. "Miguel, this is Miss Davenport," August introduced. "Miss Davenport, Miguel Vasquez, my segundo." "Pleased to meet you," Marigold said politely. Miguel smiled warmly. "Likewise, señorita." His eyes drifted to the makeshift cradle, and a little one too, beautiful. "Miguel has 7 children of his own," August explained with a grin. "Seems to add another every time I turn around." The foreman laughed. "8 now, Chief. Rosalinda had our newest son last month. 8, August exclaimed. How do you keep them all straight, amigo? Easy. They all look like their mother, gracias a Dios. Miguel turned back to August, his expression growing more serious. We have a problem with the north pasture fence. Looks like someone cut it deliberately. Found tracks 3 riders heading east. August's face hardened. Simmons's men, Miguel nodded grimly. Most likely, about 20 head missing by my count. Marigold watched as August's easy manner transformed. His jaw tightened and something dangerous flickered in his eyes. Get the boys ready, he said, standing. We ride in 30 minutes. See Jeef. Miguel tipped his hat to Marigold before departing. August turned to her, his expression softening slightly. I'm sorry, Miss Davenport, I need to handle this situation. Of course, Marigold said, curiosity getting the better of her. Who is Simmons? August's mouth formed a hard line. Victor Simmons. Owns the Big S ranch to the north. Been trying to drive me off my land for 2 years now, ever since silver was discovered in the mountains that border both our properties. That's terrible, Marigold said, genuinely shocked. Can't the law help? August gave a humorless laugh. Sheriff Dawson is Simmons's brother-in-law. And even if he wasn't, laws spread thin out here. He seemed to remember himself then, offering her an apologetic smile. Forgive me. These are not your troubles. Please make yourself at home today. I should be back by sundown. Is it dangerous? The question slipped out before Marigold could stop it. Something warmed in August's eyes at her concern. Not if Simmons has any sense. We're just going to retrieve what's ours. He hesitated, then added, I'd be grateful if you'd consider staying a few more days, Miss Davenport. At least until we're certain Simmons isn't causing more trouble. It would ease my mind to know you and little Lily are safe. Marigold should have refused. Every day she stayed increased the risk of her past catching up with her. And yet, the prospect of continuing her desperate journey with Lily into the unknown was suddenly more terrifying than staying. A few days, she agreed softly, if you're certain we're not imposing. You could never be an imposition, August said with such sincerity that Marigold felt her cheeks warm. He cleared his throat, seeming almost embarrassed by his own earnestness. I should get ready. After he'd gone, Mrs. Porter gave Marigold a knowing look that made her blush deepen. He's a good man, that August Rawlins, the housekeeper said, gathering the breakfast dishes. Best I've ever known, in fact. Never seen him take to someone so quickly, though. Mrs. Porter, we're not, Marigold stammered. The older woman chuckled. I didn't say a thing about that, did I? Now, how about I show you around the place while the men are out? Might as well know where everything is if you're staying a while. The tour revealed a house much larger than it had appeared from the outside. 6 bedrooms upstairs, though only August's was currently occupied. A formal dining room that Mrs. Porter said was rarely used except at Christmas. A study filled with books that surprised Marigold. She hadn't expected a cowboy to be such an avid reader. August reads everything he can get his hands on, Mrs. Porter explained when Marigold commented on the extensive library. Orders books from as far away as New York City. Says just because he lives in the middle of nowhere doesn't mean his mind has to. Throughout the day, Marigold helped Mrs. Porter with household tasks, grateful to be useful. She mended shirts while the housekeeper baked bread, then assisted in preparing a stew for the men's return. Lily was passed between them, cooing happily at the attention. You're good with her, Marigold observed as Mrs. Porter sang softly to the baby while kneading dough. You must miss your grandchildren. I do, the older woman admitted. But I visit Denver twice a year, and this place has become home in its own way. August makes sure of that. Marigold hesitated, then asked the question that had been nagging at her. Has he never married? He seems, I mean, he's clearly established here. Mrs. Porter gave her a sidelong glance. There was a girl once, before the war. They were to be married when he returned, but... She sighed. War changes men. He came back different, quieter. By then, she'd married another. That's so sad, Marigold murmured. It was for a time, but August isn't one to dwell on what might have been. He built a good life here. Mrs. Porter wiped her hands on her apron. Enough gossip. Why don't you gather some eggs from the henhouse while I finish here? Fresh air will do you good. The ranch was peaceful in the afternoon sunlight. Marigold, with Lily securely wrapped against her chest, made her way to the henhouse, breathing deeply of the clean, sage-scented air. She couldn't remember the last time she'd felt this calm, this safe. As she collected eggs in the basket Mrs. Porter had provided, a movement near the barn caught her eye. A rider was approaching not from the direction August and his men had gone, but from the east. Instinctively, Marigold ducked behind the henhouse, her heart racing. The stranger dismounted at the hitching post, looking around. He was expensively dressed for these parts in a tailored suit and polished boots. Something about his confident swagger sent a chill down Marigold's spine. She watched as he knocked at the main house door. Mrs. Porter answered, and though Marigold couldn't hear their exchange, the housekeeper's body language was stiff, unwelcoming. After a brief conversation, the man handed Mrs. Porter something, a card, perhaps then remounted and rode away. Only when he was out of sight did Marigold emerge from her hiding place, hurrying back to the house with her basket of eggs. Who was that? She asked Mrs. Porter, trying to keep her voice casual. The housekeeper frowned. Said his name was Edward Taylor. Looking for ranch property to buy in the area, supposedly. Left his card for August. She shook her head. Didn't like the look of him, to be honest. Too slick by half. May I see the card? Marigold asked, a terrible suspicion forming. Mrs. Porter handed it over and Marigold's blood ran cold. Edward Taylor, private investigator, Boston, Massachusetts. He had found her. Mrs. Porter, I need to go, Marigold said urgently, setting down the basket of eggs with trembling hands. I can't stay here. What? Why on earth? The housekeeper broke off, studying Marigold's face. You know that man. It wasn't a question. Marigold nodded, tears welling in her eyes. He's looking for me. For us, she whispered, clutching Lily tighter. I've put you all in danger just by being here. Mrs. Porter's expression softened. Child, whatever trouble you're in, running isn't always the answer. August will be back soon. At least wait to speak with him. Marigold shook her head frantically. You don't understand. The man who sent that investigator, he's powerful, dangerous. I can't involve August in my problems. August Rawlins can handle himself, Mrs. Porter said firmly. And he wouldn't thank me for letting you disappear without a word. At least wait until dark. If you're still determined to go, then I won't stop you. Trapped by her own sense of decency, Marigold reluctantly agreed. But as she helped prepare the evening meal, her mind raced with escape plans. She would need supplies, money though she had precious little of that. Perhaps she could reach the nearest train station and head west as she'd originally planned. The sound of hoofbeats announced the men's return just as the sun was beginning to set. From the kitchen window, Marigold watched as August and his cowboys rode in, driving a small herd of cattle before them. Relief flooded through her at the sight of him, unharmed and whole, before she reminded herself that his safety was precisely why she needed to leave. August entered the kitchen a few minutes later, removing his hat and running a hand through his hair. He looked tired but satisfied. Got our cattle back, he announced. Simmons's men scattered when they saw us coming. Cowards, the lot of them. His eyes found Marigold and his expression brightened. How was your day? I see Lily's taking to ranch life already, he added with a smile at the sleeping baby in her arms. Fine, Marigold managed, forcing a smile. Did everything go smoothly? August nodded, accepting a cup of coffee from Mrs. Porter. No shots fired if that's what you're asking. Just a show of force. Simmons will think twice before trying that again. Marigold nodded, desperately trying to act normal while her heart raced with fear and indecision. You had a visitor, Mrs. Porter said, giving Marigold a pointed look. August's brow furrowed. Who? Man named Edward Taylor. Said he was looking at ranches in the area, left his card. Mrs. Porter handed August the card, and Marigold watched his face closely as he read it. A Boston detective out here looking at ranches, August said skeptically. That's strange. He looked up at Marigold, his gaze sharpening at whatever he saw in her expression. Mrs. Porter, would you mind checking if Miguel needs anything for his youngest? I believe we still have some of that tonic Dr. Wilson left for colic. The housekeeper nodded, understanding the request for privacy. I'll just see to that now. When they were alone, August moved closer to Marigold. This man is looking for you, isn't he? Marigold's eyes filled with tears as she nodded. I'm so sorry, I never meant to bring trouble to your door. Tell me, August said gently. Whatever it is, we can face it together. Why would you do that? Marigold asked, genuinely bewildered. You don't even know me. August was quiet for a moment, his blue eyes searching hers. I'd like to, though. Know you, that is, if you'd let me. The simple honesty in his voice broke something open inside Marigold. Before she could stop herself, the whole story came pouring out. My father was a successful merchant in Boston. After my mother died, it was just the two of us. He raised me more like a son than a daughter, in many ways taught me about business, let me help with the accounts. But then he became ill last year, cancer. While he was bedridden, his business partner, James Blackwell, began to take over more and more of the company. Marigold took a shaky breath. James was charming, attentive, 20 years my senior but distinguished. He began courting me and I was flattered. Naive. After my father died, James proposed. I accepted, thinking I would at least have security if not love. August's expression was unreadable, but he nodded for her to continue. 3 months before the wedding, I discovered James had been systematically embezzling from the company for years. He'd driven it nearly to ruin. When I confronted him, Marigold closed her eyes, the memory still raw. He changed, became cruel. Said he'd only proposed to gain complete control of the business, that once we were married, I'd be confined to womanly duties while he handled the money. You broke the engagement, August guessed. Marigold nodded. I threatened to expose him. That's when I learned how powerful he truly was. He had judges, policemen, even newspaper editors in his pocket. No one would believe me. Instead, he spread rumors that I was mentally unstable, grief-stricken over my father. He had me followed, intimidated my friends until they abandoned me. She looked down at Lily, sleeping peacefully against her chest. But the worst came later. Marigold's voice faltered. He forced himself on me, said if I wouldn't be his wife willingly, he'd make sure I had no choice. August's face darkened with anger, his hands clenching into fists. This man Blackwell, he's Lily's father, Marigold nodded, tears streaming down her face now. When I realized I was with child, I knew I had to escape. He would have forced me to marry him, or worse, forced me to. To get rid of the baby, I took what little money I had left and fled west. I've been running ever since, staying nowhere more than a few weeks. But he's found me every time, and now he's found me again. August was silent for a long moment, his jaw working as though he was struggling to control his anger. Finally, he reached out tentatively, and when Marigold didn't flinch away, he gently wiped a tear from her cheek. You're not running anymore, Marigold, he said, his voice low and intense. Not unless you want to, but you don't have to face this alone. You can't possibly want to involve yourself in this, Marigold protested. This man is dangerous, August. He has money connections, so do I, August interrupted. Maybe not in Boston society, but out here. This is my land, my territory, and I protect what's mine. Something in his voice made Marigold's heart skip. I'm not yours to protect. August took a step closer, his eyes never leaving hers. You could be. You and Lily both, if you wanted. You barely know me, Marigold whispered, though she didn't move away. I know enough, August replied. I know you're brave and strong. I know you're a devoted mother who would do anything to protect her child. I know when you smile, really smile, like you did this morning when Lily was cooing at breakfast, it lights up the whole room. He took a deep breath. I know that from the moment I found you at that stagecoach station, something inside me recognized you, like I'd been waiting for you without even knowing it. Marigold stared at him, speechless. No man had ever spoken to her with such raw honesty. Stay, August said simply. Not just to hide. Stay because this could be your home, our home. You, me, and Lily. August, the sound of approaching horses interrupted whatever Marigold had been about to say. August's expression changed instantly, alert and wary. He moved to the window, peering out into the gathering dusk. 4 riders, he said grimly, and one of them's your Boston detective. Fear clawed at Marigold's throat. He's brought men with him. August, please, let me leave. Go out the back. No, August said firmly, turning back to her. You're done running, Marigold. We face this together. Before she could protest further, he called out, Mrs. Porter, Miguel. Both appeared within moments, concern evident on their faces. Miguel, we have unwelcome visitors, August explained rapidly. Get the men armed and ready, but no one fires unless I give the order. Mrs. Porter, take Marigold and Lily upstairs to my room. Lock the door. August, no, Marigold pleaded. This is my fight. He took her face in his hands, his touch surprisingly gentle for a man preparing for confrontation. It's our fight now. Trust me, Marigold, please. Something in his eyes, determination, protectiveness, and something deeper she wasn't ready to name, made her nod. Be careful, she whispered. August's lips curved in a brief smile. Always am. As Mrs. Porter hurried her upstairs, Marigold heard the riders reach the front of the house. From August's bedroom window, she could see 4 men dismounting. Edward Taylor was easy to identify in his city clothes. The others were clearly hired guns, rough-looking men with revolvers strapped to their hips. August stepped onto the porch, Miguel and 2 other cowboys flanking him. All were armed, though their weapons remained holstered. Evening, gentlemen, August called, his voice carrying easily in the still air. Something I can help you with. Taylor stepped forward. I'm looking for a Miss Marigold Davenport. I have reason to believe she's here. And who might be asking? August replied, his tone pleasant but unyielding. Edward Taylor, private investigator. I represent Mr. James Blackwell of Boston, who is most concerned about his fiancée's whereabouts. Even from a distance, Marigold could see August's posture stiffen. That's so. Funny thing about engagements, they generally require the agreement of both parties. Taylor's face hardened. Sir, this is a private matter between Mr. Blackwell and Miss Davenport. If she's here, I must insist on speaking with her. You're not in a position to insist on anything on my property, August said, his voice dropping to a dangerous register. But I'll tell you what. You ride back to town, send a telegraph to your employer, and tell him that Miss Davenport and her daughter are under my protection now. The name's August Rawlins. He's welcome to come discuss matters himself, if he's man enough. One of the gunmen moved his hand toward his weapon, but Taylor stopped him with a gesture. Mr. Rawlins, I don't think you understand the situation. Mr. Blackwell is a very powerful man. He wants his fiancée and his child returned to Boston. His child? August's laugh was cold. A man who forces himself on a woman has no right to call himself a father. Taylor's eyes widened slightly, but he recovered quickly. Those are serious allegations, Mr. Rawlins. Ones that have been investigated and dismissed by the proper authorities in Boston. We're not in Boston, August replied. Out here, we have a simpler way of dealing with men who hurt women. Now I've been patient, but my hospitality has its limits. You and your men have 1 minute to get back on your horses and ride out, or my boys here will escort you off my property in a considerably less comfortable fashion. As if to emphasize his point, Miguel and the other cowboys shifted, hands hovering near their weapons. Taylor studied August for a long moment, clearly weighing his options. Finally, he nodded stiffly. This isn't over, Mr. Rawlins. Mr. Blackwell will not take this interference lightly. I'm counting on it, August replied with dangerous calm. Tell him I'll be waiting. Marigold watched, heart pounding, as Taylor and his men reluctantly remounted and rode away. Only when they were out of sight did she exhale the breath she'd been holding, sagging against Mrs. Porter. He did it, she whispered in disbelief. He actually sent them away. Of course he did, Mrs. Porter said matter-of-factly. Told you August Rawlins can handle himself. A few minutes later they heard footsteps on the stairs, and then August was in the doorway, his expression softening when he saw Marigold. They're gone, he confirmed. For now, at least. What happens next? Marigold asked, fear and hope warring within her. August crossed the room to stand before her. That depends on you, Marigold. I meant what I said downstairs. I want you and Lily to stay, not just to hide from Blackwell, but because. He hesitated, then finished simply, because I want you in my life, however you'll have me. Marigold looked up at this man who had, in the space of 2 days, offered her more kindness and protection than she'd known in years. I barely know you, she whispered. Then stay and get to know me, he replied. We have time. Marigold thought of all the places she'd fled to over the past 6 months, the constant fear, the loneliness. Then she looked at August's steady, honorable August, and something inside her shifted, like puzzle pieces falling into place. I'd like that, she said softly, to stay to see if there could be something between us. The smile that broke across August's face was like sunrise after the longest night. That's all I'm asking for, a chance. Mrs. Porter cleared her throat pointedly. Well, now that's settled, I believe supper's getting cold downstairs. August laughed, the tension of the confrontation draining from his shoulders. We can't have that, can we? He offered his arm to Marigold. Shall we? As she took his arm, Lily nestled securely against her chest. Marigold felt a sensation she'd almost forgotten: hope, blooming like a desert flower after rain. The next few weeks passed in a haze of domestic tranquility that Marigold had never expected to experience again. True to his word, August gave her time and space to acclimate to life at Diamond R Ranch, never pushing for more than she was ready to give. During the days, Marigold found herself falling into a comfortable routine. She helped Mrs. Porter with household tasks, tended to the kitchen garden, and even learned to make cheese from the goat's milk that Lily thrived on. In the evenings, after supper, she and August would sit on the porch swing, watching the sunset paint the western sky in magnificent hues of orange and purple. These quiet moments became precious to Marigold. Sometimes they talked, August telling stories of his childhood in Pennsylvania, his harrowing experiences during the war, his dreams for the ranch. Other times they simply sat in companionable silence, Lily sleeping peacefully in her basket beside them. It was during one such evening, nearly a month after her arrival, that Marigold finally gathered the courage to ask the question that had been nagging at her. "August, what happens when James comes? And he will come eventually." August was quiet for a moment, his arm resting along the back of the swing behind her shoulders, not quite touching her, but close enough that she could feel his warmth. "I've been thinking about that," he admitted. "I've sent letters to some friends, men I served with during the war, who have become lawyers, newspapermen, even one who's now a senator. Ask them to look into Blackwell's business dealings in Boston." Marigold turned to him in surprise. "You did that for me?" August's expression was serious. "For you and for Lily. Men like Blackwell don't operate in isolation. If he was embezzling from your father's company, chances are he's done worse elsewhere. My friends are discreet but thorough. With luck, we'll have ammunition against him when he shows up. And if that doesn't work—" Marigold pressed. August's jaw tightened. "Then we fight him by other means. But I promise you this, Marigold, he will never touch you or Lily again. Not while I draw breath." The fierce protectiveness in his voice made something warm unfurl in Marigold's chest. Without thinking, she reached for his hand, entwining her fingers with his. It was the first time she'd initiated such contact between them, and August looked down at their joined hands with an expression of wonder. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything. I don't know how I'll ever repay you." August squeezed her hand gently. "I don't want repayment, Marigold. I just want—" He broke off, seeming to struggle with his words. "What?" Marigold prompted softly. "What do you want, August?" His blue eyes met hers, vulnerable and honest. "I want to be the man you trust. The man who makes you feel safe. The man who—" He took a deep breath. "The man who loves you and Lily, if you'll let me." Marigold's heart stuttered in her chest. "August, you don't have to say anything," he said quickly. "I know it's too soon. I just wanted you to know where I stand." Marigold studied his face in the fading light, the strong line of his jaw, the kindness in his eyes, the small scar that crossed his eyebrow. In just a month, this face had become dear to her, a symbol of everything she'd thought lost forever. Safety, belonging, hope. "It's not too soon," she whispered, surprising herself with the truth of it. "I think I've been falling in love with you since that first night when you said I was safe here." August's breath caught. "Marigold, I'm scared," she admitted. "Terrified, actually. Of trusting again, of believing this could be real. But when I'm with you, I can imagine a future. For the first time since I fled Boston, I can see beyond tomorrow." August raised their joined hands to his lips, pressing a gentle kiss to her knuckles. "That's all I need to hear. We'll take it one day at a time. Together." The word together hung in the air between them, full of promise. August leaned closer, his intention clear in his eyes. Marigold's heart raced as she tilted her face up to his. Their lips met in a kiss so gentle, it brought tears to her eyes, a kiss that spoke of reverence, of protection, of a love still new but growing stronger with each passing day. When they parted, August rested his forehead against hers. "You and Lily are my home now, Marigold. Whatever comes, we face it together." In that moment, with the first stars appearing in the darkening sky above them, Marigold believed him with every fiber of her being. The peaceful routine of ranch life continued through the summer and into early fall. Marigold watched in wonder as Lily grew stronger daily, her tiny features becoming more defined, her personality emerging in gummy smiles and curious eyes that followed August whenever he was near. For his part, August doted on the baby as if she were his own, fashioning a proper cradle for her from polished pine and rocking her to sleep when Marigold was tired. Their relationship deepened gradually, built on mutual respect and growing affection. August never pressed for more than Marigold was ready to give. Content with stolen kisses on the porch and long conversations by the fireplace after Lily was asleep. Each day, Marigold felt the walls around her heart lowering a little more, her trust in this good, honorable man becoming as natural as breathing. The first hint that their idyll might be threatened came on a crisp October morning. Marigold was in the kitchen, kneading bread dough while Mrs. Porter bounced Lily on her hip when Miguel burst through the door, his normally composed face tight with concern. "Where is August?" he asked without preamble. "Checking the south pasture with the boys," Mrs. Porter replied. "What's wrong?" Miguel hesitated, glancing at Marigold. "Sheriff Dawson is riding this way, not alone." Marigold's hands stilled in the dough, fear closing her throat. "How many?" "6 men. One of them is Victor Simmons." Mrs. Porter muttered something under her breath that sounded suspiciously like a curse. "Miguel, send one of the boys to fetch August. Now." As Miguel hurried out, Marigold wiped her hands on her apron, trying to control her rising panic. "Mrs. Porter, what does this mean? Could James have sent them?" The housekeeper's expression was grim as she handed Lily back to Marigold. "I don't know, child. But Simmons and Dawson together means trouble, with or without your Boston man involved." Marigold moved to the window, watching as a group of riders approached the house. At their head was a barrel-chested man with a sheriff's badge pinned to his vest. Beside him rode a thin, aristocratic-looking man with a neatly trimmed goatee whom Marigold assumed must be Victor Simmons. The others were clearly gunmen, hard-faced and alert. "Mrs. Porter, should I hide?" Marigold asked, clutching Lily protectively. The older woman considered for a moment, then shook her head. "No, August would want you to show strength. Besides, if they're here about you, hiding would only confirm their suspicions." Before Marigold could respond, the sound of horses outside announced the visitor's arrival. Mrs. Porter squared her shoulders. "Stay behind me, but hold your head high. You've done nothing wrong." Marigold nodded, straightening her spine and lifting her chin despite the fear churning in her stomach. They moved to the front room just as a heavy knock sounded at the door. Mrs. Porter opened it to find Sheriff Dawson filling the doorway, his meaty hand resting on the butt of his revolver. "Morning, Mrs. Porter. Need to speak with August Rawlins." "He's out checking the herd," Mrs. Porter replied coolly. "Expected back shortly. You're welcome to wait in the yard." Dawson's small eyes moved past her to Marigold and Lily. "This the woman, then? The one Taylor was looking for?" Marigold felt a chill at the confirmation that James had indeed reached out to the local law. Still, she met the sheriff's gaze steadily. "I'm Marigold Davenport, yes. This is my daughter, Lily," Dawson grunted. "Got papers here requiring you to come with me, madam." "Gentleman from Boston says you've absconded with his child." "That's a lie," Marigold said, her voice surprisingly firm despite her racing heart. "Lily is my daughter. James Blackwell has no claim to her." "Not according to these," Dawson replied, producing a sheaf of official-looking documents. "Court order from Boston says the child belongs to her father, James Blackwell, and that you're unfit to care for her." Mrs. Porter stepped forward. "Those papers have no jurisdiction here, Sheriff, and you know it. This is territorial land." "Maybe so," Dawson conceded with a shrug. "But a father's rights are a father's rights, no matter where you are, and I've got 5 men with me who are prepared to enforce them." 6 against one old woman and a mother with a baby," Mrs. Porter scoffed. "You must be very brave, Sheriff Dawson." The sheriff's face reddened. "Now see here. I believe Mrs. Porter asked you to wait outside," came August's voice from behind the group of men. He sat astride his stallion, rifle resting casually across his saddle. Behind him were Miguel and 4 other cowboys, all armed and watchful. Dawson turned, his hand still on his gun. "Rawlins, About time you showed up. Got business with this woman you've been harboring." August dismounted smoothly, handing his reins to one of his men before approaching the porch. His eyes met Marigold's briefly, a silent reassurance passing between them before he turned his attention back to the sheriff. "Any business with Miss Davenport goes through me," August said calmly. "She and her daughter are under my protection." Victor Simmons urged his horse forward. "You've always been a fool, Rawlins, but this takes the prize. Getting yourself mixed up with a fugitive." "Miss Davenport is no fugitive," August replied. "She's a woman who fled an abusive situation to protect herself and her child, something any decent man would respect." "That's not what these papers say," Dawson insisted, waving the documents. "They say she's mentally unstable, that she stole Blackwell's child and ran. He wants his daughter back and the law's on his side." August held out his hand. "Let me see those papers." After a moment's hesitation, Dawson handed them over. August read through them carefully, his expression giving nothing away. Finally, he looked up. "These are interesting, Sheriff, particularly because they're signed by Judge Franklin Howe of Boston." August reached into his vest pocket and pulled out a folded telegram. "I received this yesterday from Senator William Clark, a personal friend of mine. Judge Howe was arrested last week on charges of accepting bribes to issue false court orders. Seems he had quite the arrangement with certain wealthy businessmen in Boston." Dawson's face paled slightly. "That don't change the fact that a father has rights." "A father does," August agreed, "but James Blackwell is no father. He's a rapist and a thief who's about to face his own legal troubles." He produced another telegram. "This one's from the district attorney of Massachusetts. Seems my friends found evidence of Blackwell's embezzlement schemes. He's being indicted as we speak." Victor Simmons laughed, though the sound held no humor. "Touching story, Rawlins, but it changes nothing. The woman comes with us, telegram or no telegram." "I don't think you understand the situation, Simmons," August said, his voice dropping to a dangerous register. "Miss Davenport isn't going anywhere. Neither is her daughter. And if you or any of your men take one step toward them, it'll be the last step you ever take." The tension in the air was palpable as the two groups of armed men faced each other. Marigold held her breath, clutching Lily tighter against her chest. "You really want to die for some woman's bastard?" Simmons asked incredulously. August's expression didn't change, but something deadly flickered in his eyes. "Careful, Simmons. The next man who speaks ill of Miss Davenport or her daughter won't live to regret it." Sheriff Dawson looked increasingly uncomfortable. "Look here, Rawlins. I'm just doing my job. If what you say about these papers is true, then Blackwell's man Taylor misled me." "I'd say that's a fair assessment," August agreed. "So why don't you and your men ride back to town and send a telegram to Boston confirming the situation? I'm sure the new district attorney would be happy to update you on Blackwell's legal status." Dawson hesitated, looking to Simmons, who was clearly fuming at the unexpected turn of events. "This isn't over, Rawlins," Simmons growled. "For your sake, I hope it is," August replied evenly. "Because next time you come onto my property uninvited, I won't be so hospitable." For a tense moment, it seemed Simmons might push the confrontation further. Then, with a muttered curse, he wheeled his horse around. "Come on, Dawson. This ain't worth getting shot over." The sheriff looked relieved at the excuse to retreat. "I'll be checking on those telegrams, Rawlins. If they don't say what you claim." "They will," August said confidently. "Good day, Sheriff." Marigold watched from the doorway as the men rode away, her knees weak with relief. August watched until they were out of sight before turning to her, concern etched on his features. "Are you all right?" he asked, taking the porch steps two at a time to reach her. Marigold nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. August's arms came around her and Lily, solid and secure, and she leaned into his strength. "You were magnificent," she whispered against his chest. "Those telegrams." "I told you my friends were looking into Blackwell," August said, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. "The news about Judge Howe came yesterday. Blackwell's indictment this morning. I was coming back to tell you when Miguel found me." Marigold pulled back just enough to look up at him. "Is it true? Is James really being arrested?" August nodded, his eyes warm with triumph. "It's true. The evidence was overwhelming once someone actually looked for it. You were right all along, Marigold, and now everyone will know it." The enormity of what this meant washed over her, freedom from fear, from hiding, from shame. "I can't believe it's over," she whispered. "Believe it," August said, cupping her cheek gently. "You're free, Marigold, free to build whatever life you want." In that moment, looking up at the man who had risked everything to protect her and Lily, Marigold knew exactly what life she wanted. "I want a life with you," she said softly. "Here at Diamond R, if you still want us." August's smile was like sunrise breaking over the mountains. "Want you?" "Marigold, I love you. You and Lily both. I want nothing more than to build a life together." He hesitated, then reached into his pocket and pulled out a small leather pouch. "I've been carrying this around for a week, waiting for the right moment." From the pouch, he withdrew a simple gold ring set with a small but perfect diamond. "It was my mother's," he explained. "I had Mrs. Porter help me size it down for you." Marigold gasped, tears filling her eyes as August dropped to one knee before her. "Marigold Davenport, will you marry me? Will you make this ranch your home, make me the happiest man in the territory, and let me be a father to Lily?" "Yes," Marigold whispered, her voice breaking with joy. "Yes to all of it." August slipped the ring onto her finger, then stood and gathered her and Lily into his arms once more. His kiss was tender yet passionate, a promise of all the years to come. "You're my home now," he murmured against her lips. "Both of you." Mrs. Porter cleared her throat from the doorway, her eyes suspiciously bright. "Well, it's about time. Now, are we celebrating with breakfast or not? All this excitement has worked up my appetite." August laughed, keeping one arm around Marigold as they moved back into the house. "I think this calls for your special flapjacks, Mrs. Porter, and maybe break out that jar of peach preserves you've been saving." A proper occasion for them at last. The housekeeper agreed with a satisfied nod. As they gathered around the kitchen table, August, Marigold with Lily in her lap, Mrs. Porter, and Miguel, who had joined them to toast the engagement with coffee, Marigold looked around at these people who had become her family in such a short time. From shame and fear to love and belonging, it was a journey she could scarcely believe she'd made. Yet here she was, with August's ring on her finger and his promises in her heart, finally home. The wedding was a simple affair held in the ranch house parlor 2 weeks later. Pastor Williams rode out from town to perform the ceremony, and though the guest list was small, just the ranch hands, Miguel's family, and a few neighboring ranchers who had come to respect August, the celebration was joyous. Marigold wore a cream-colored dress that Mrs. Porter had altered from one of her daughter's old gowns, with wildflowers from the prairie tucked into her upswept hair. August, normally seen in work clothes, had donned a clean black suit that emphasized the breadth of his shoulders and the lean strength of his frame. But it was the look in his eyes as Marigold walked toward him, Lily in Mrs. Porter's arms nearby, that took her breath away, a look of such profound love and wonder that tears sprang to her eyes. "You are so beautiful," he whispered as she reached him. The vows were traditional, but when August placed the ring on her finger, his mother's ring that now symbolized their future together, he added his own promise. Marigold, I take you as my wife, and I take Lily as my daughter. I pledge to you both my protection, my provision, my devotion, and my heart for all the days of my life." There wasn't a dry eye in the room as Marigold responded with her own vow. "August, I give you my trust, my loyalty, my love, and my future. You found us when we were lost and gave us a home when we had none. I promise to stand by your side through whatever comes for all the days of my life." When Pastor Williams pronounced them husband and wife, August's kiss was both tender and possessive, a sealed promise between them that drew cheers and good-natured whistles from the assembled guests. The celebration continued well into the evening, with a feast prepared by Mrs. Porter and the wives of the ranch hands, music provided by Miguel's teenage sons on guitar and fiddle, and dancing in the cleared space of the great room. As dusk fell, August led Marigold out onto the porch, away from the noise and laughter for a moment of quiet together. "Happy, Mrs. Rawlins?" he asked, his arms encircling her waist from behind as they looked out over the land that was now truly their home. Marigold leaned back against his chest, savoring the new name. "Happier than I ever imagined possible." August pressed a kiss to her temple. "I have something to show you, a wedding gift." Taking her hand, he led her around the side of the house to where a new structure stood adjacent to the main building, a small but beautifully constructed nursery, connected to their bedroom by a covered walkway. "August," Marigold breathed, stepping inside to find a perfectly appointed room with a larger version of the cradle he'd made for Lily, a rocking chair by the window, and shelves filled with toys and books. "It's beautiful. When did you do this?" "The boys and I have been working on it in secret for weeks," August admitted with a smile. "Miguel's wife made the curtains and bedding." Marigold turned to him, overwhelmed by the thoughtfulness of the gift. "You've thought of everything." August's smile turned a touch shy. "Well, not just for Lily. I thought. That is, I hoped. It might be used by other little ones someday, if you wanted." The idea of more children with August's blue eyes and kind heart filled Marigold with a sweet longing she hadn't dared contemplate before now. "I'd like that," she whispered, rising on tiptoes to kiss him. "Very much." Their moment of privacy was interrupted by Mrs. Porter calling them back to cut the wedding cake, but the promise in August's eyes as he led her back inside told Marigold that this was only the beginning of their celebrations. Later that night, after the guests had departed and Lily was sleeping soundly in her new nursery, Marigold and August came together as husband and wife for the first time. His touch was reverent, his patience infinite as he helped her replace painful memories with new ones of tenderness and passion. "I love you, Marigold Rawlins," he whispered in the darkness, her name on his lips, a vow renewed. "And I love you, August Rawlins," she replied, her heart fuller than she had ever believed possible. "My protector, my husband, my home." 5 years passed in a blur of happiness and growth. Diamond R Ranch prospered under August's careful management, expanding to include new breeding stock, improved grazing lands, and a reputation as one of the finest cattle operations in the territory. But the true wealth of the ranch was measured in the laughter of children that now filled its rooms. Lily, at 5 years old, was a spirited, intelligent girl with her mother's golden brown hair and a fearlessness that both delighted and terrified her parents. She followed August everywhere, proudly declaring herself Papa's helper, as she learned about ranch life. She had been joined 2 years earlier by her brother, Joseph, a sturdy toddler with August's blue eyes and a determined nature that matched his father's. And now, nestled in Marigold's arms as she sat on the porch swing on a warm June evening, was their newest addition, 1-month-old Emma. born with a tuft of blonde hair and her father's cleft chin. August emerged from the house, having just finished reading a bedtime story to Lily and settling Joseph into his bed. He sat beside Marigold, draping his arm around her shoulders and peering down at their sleeping daughter. "All quiet on the Western Front?" Marigold asked with a smile. Joseph wanted 3 sips of water and 2 extra kisses, but yes, they're finally down, August replied, leaning over to press a kiss to Emma's forehead, then one to Marigold's lips. "How are my girls?" "Perfect," Marigold said contentedly, leaning into his embrace. "Emma just had her evening meal and should sleep for a few hours now." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching as the first stars appeared in the deepening blue of the sky. These quiet moments together were precious amid the busy life of the ranch and raising 3 children. "I had a letter from Senator Clark today," August said eventually. "Thought you'd want to know that James Blackwell was denied parole again. He'll serve at least 3 more years." Marigold nodded, feeling the familiar mix of relief and distant sadness that such news always brought. James's financial crimes had eventually landed him in prison for a 10-year sentence. Though he could no longer threaten her or Lily, Marigold sometimes felt a pang of regret that a man with such potential had chosen such a dark path. "It seems a lifetime ago now," she murmured. "Sometimes I can hardly remember that frightened woman hiding at the stagecoach station." August squeezed her shoulder gently. "She was brave, that woman, brave and strong, just like her daughter." Marigold smiled, thinking of Lily's fearless approach to life. "She gets that from her father." "Her real father," she added, looking up at August. From the day of their marriage, August had been Lily's papa in every way that mattered. The adoption papers had merely formalized what was already true in their hearts. "I got a letter too," Marigold said after a moment. "From Mrs. Porter." August's eyebrows rose in interest. Their beloved housekeeper had retired 2 years earlier, moving to Denver to live with her daughter's family. "How is the old battle axe?" "Terrorizing her grandchildren and great-grandchildren with equal vigor," Marigold laughed. "She sends her love and says to tell you that if you don't bring the children to visit this Christmas, she'll come back and make your life miserable." "Heaven forbid," August chuckled. "I suppose we'll have to make the trip then. Emma should be old enough to travel by then." Marigold nodded, looking out over the ranch that had become so dear to her. The main house had been expanded twice to accommodate their growing family. The bunkhouse had been rebuilt and enlarged as the operation grew. New barns, corrals, and outbuildings dotted the property. But the heart of Diamond R remained unchanged, a place of safety, of belonging, of love. "You ever regret it?" she asked suddenly, a rare moment of insecurity surfacing. "Taking in a woman with a baby, making us your responsibility?" August turned to her, surprise evident in his expression. "Regret? Marigold, finding you and Lily was the best thing that ever happened to me." He took her free hand, bringing it to his lips. "Before you, I had a ranch but not a home. I had purpose but not joy. You changed everything." Tears pricked at Marigold's eyes. Even after 5 years of marriage, August's honest declarations of love could still move her deeply. "I was so afraid," she admitted softly. "That night when you found us, I thought my life was over, that Lily and I would never know safety or happiness again. I couldn't imagine a future beyond the next day, the next town." "And now," August prompted gently, Marigold smiled through her tears. "Now I can't imagine a life without you, without our children, our home, our love. You gave me back my future, August." "We gave it to each other," he corrected, leaning in to kiss her tenderly. "And we have so much more ahead of us. Years and years of this. Of us." As if sensing the emotion of the moment, Emma stirred in Marigold's arms, her tiny face scrunching before relaxing back into sleep. August chuckled, running a gentle finger along his daughter's cheek. "Should we put this little lady to bed and enjoy some time alone?" he suggested, his eyes warming with a look Marigold had come to know well over their years together. "That sounds perfect," she agreed, allowing him to help her to her feet. Together they walked into the house, August's arm around Marigold's waist, Emma cradled securely between them. As they reached the nursery, a floorboard creaked and Marigold looked up to see Lily standing in the doorway of her bedroom, rubbing her eyes sleepily. "Papa, Mama," she called softly, "I had a dream." August crossed to her, kneeling down to her level. "A bad dream, pumpkin." Lily shook her head, her golden brown braids swinging. "No, a good one. I dreamed we were all riding horses together, even baby Emma." August smiled, brushing a strand of hair from his daughter's face. "That sounds like a wonderful dream, and someday soon we'll make it come true. But for now, it's back to bed for little cowgirls." "Will you tuck me in again?" Lily asked, already taking his hand trustingly. "Of course," August replied, glancing back at Marigold with a smile that still made her heart skip. "I'll be right back." As Marigold settled Emma into her cradle, she listened to the soft murmur of August's voice in the next room, telling Lily a shortened version of their story of a brave mama and her baby, and the cowboy who found them and brought them home. It was Lily's favorite bedtime story, though the 5-year-old didn't yet understand that it was her own story, the beginning of their family. Someday, when she was older, they would tell her the full truth. But for now, it was simply a tale of courage and love, of finding home in the most unexpected places. When August returned, he found Marigold standing by Emma's cradle, tears glistening on her cheeks. "What is it, love?" he asked, concerned. Marigold shook her head, smiling through her tears. "Nothing, everything, just grateful. For you, for our children, for this life we've built." August gathered her into his arms, his heartbeat strong and steady against her ear. "Remember what I said to you that first day, when I found you hiding and afraid?" Marigold nodded against his chest. "You said I was safe here. And then later I told you something else," August continued, tilting her face up to his. "Do you remember?" Marigold's smile deepened, the memory as clear as if it had happened yesterday instead of 5 years ago. "You said I was your home now." August nodded, his eyes reflecting all the love that had grown between them since that fateful day. "And you are, Marigold Rawlins. You and our children, you're my heart, my soul, my home. Forever." As his lips met hers in a kiss that held all the tenderness of their past and all the promise of their future, Marigold knew that she had found what she had always longed for, not just a sanctuary from the storms of life, but a place where she truly belonged. A home built not of wood and stone, but of love and trust and shared dreams. And as the stars shone down on Diamond R Ranch, the house full of sleeping children and whispered promises, Marigold and August renewed the vow they had made that first night, and every day since, to face whatever came together. For home wasn't a place, after all, but the people who made life worth living. And in each other, they had found home at last.